Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at something that, well, it pretty much runs modern life. Social media. It dictates so much, our attention, our mood, even our relationships.
It really does. It's
Yeah.
this constant companion. But what's interesting is that our source material for today, it doesn't bother debating whether social media is, good or bad.
Right. It just skips that whole tired argument.
It bypasses it completely.
Yeah.
Instead, it focuses on what I think is the most critical insight,
Mhm.
that its nature is conditional. It is, at the same time, a powerful tool and a dangerous distraction.
And that dual nature, that's exactly what we're here to unpack. Our mission for this deep dive is to really move past the surface level stuff. We want to analyze the specific factors that shift it from being a peril, a distraction that just drains your time and your spirit, to a source of actual power, a
Mm.
tool that can genuinely make your life better.
Yeah.
We need to find that pivot point based only on the material we have in front of us.
Okay, so to set the stage, the sources, they're very explicit about the stakes. On one side, you have power, and that's where it lists these tangible benefits.
Like what, specifically?
Things like huge opportunities for learning, for communication that, goes beyond physical distance, and, of course, these incredible paths for business and networking.
But the shadow side is just as real. The peril bucket, as they call it, is full of these risks that really prey on our psychology.
Mm-hmm.
The sources, they specifically call out addiction, which, I mean, that just means the platform is in control, not you.
Right.
The spread of misinformation, which we see all the time, and something I think a lot of people feel, the erosion of self-esteem.
And if we just pause on that for a second, the self-esteem erosion, it's worth noting how the sources say that happens.
Yeah, please.
It's that constant curated comparison.
Yeah.
The second you open an app, you're usually seeing this highly edited version of someone else's life.
Your best moment.
Their professional peak, their perfect vacation, the flawless family photo.
Yeah.
And the sources basically argue that this constant unfiltered comparison to an impossible standard, that's a direct cause of mental fatigue and, well, feeling bad about yourself.
That sets up the whole dilemma perfectly then. You have this technology that can help you, say, launch a company or learn a new skill.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it has these built-in mechanisms that can foster dependence and really damage your psychological well-being. So the inevitable question is, what determines which path you end up on?
And that is the absolute heart of the matter. The core insight from all this material is almost unforgiving in how simple it is. The impact depends entirely on how it is used.
Okay, let's unpack that because how it is used can sound a little vague.
Sure.
It means the platform itself, the code, the algorithm, it isn't the real problem, it's just the vehicle. The crucial variable is the control that you, the user, apply to that interaction. But what does that control actually look like?
I mean, if you think of the platform as a neutral lever, the outcome just depends on who's pulling it and how. The source material doesn't just say, be in control. It gives a prescriptive checklist.
A checklist, okay.
It tells us exactly what kind of usage is required to get the benefits and to avoid all the pitfalls.
And what are those key requirements?
For it to be beneficial, the sources demand 3 specific qualities. Your use has to be, first, wise. Second, it must be responsible. And third, and this is maybe the most important, it has to be with a clear goal. And they don't present these as, like, optional best practices. They're framed as the mandatory fence you have to build to keep the dangers out.
But isn't asking someone to be wise or responsible a bit
Yeah.
abstract? I mean, those are great philosophical ideas, but they're hard to measure. How do the sources make them practical for someone listening to this?
That's a great point.
Yeah.
And they do. They define these terms with measurable actions. Let's take responsibility. It's not just about being a good digital citizen. For this material, it means 2 things. Actively verifying information before you share it, fighting misinformation, and respecting personal boundaries.
So not letting it bleed into everything else.
Exactly. Not letting it spill over into dinner with your family or your work deadlines or your sleep. It's about being accountable for what you consume and what you produce.
That's a really useful translation. It turns it from a vague feeling into a set of actions you can actually do. What about the really abstract one? Wise usage.
Wise usage, according to this research, is all about self-awareness. It means understanding which specific things negatively affect your mental health and then actively filtering them out,
Even if they're popular.
even if they're everywhere. It's the wisdom to recognize that, say, comparing yourself to a fitness influencer is destructive for you, and then making the choice not to look. It requires a kind of internal audit of your own triggers.
So wisdom becomes a strategic decision, not just an ethical one. It's like
Ah,
building your own customized defensive shield. But I think the one that holds the most power here is the third one, using it with a clear goal. That feels like the real pivot point.
Absolutely. The clear goal requirement basically defines the entire interaction. If you open a social media app without a specific purpose in mind, you're essentially walking into a casino where the house always wins. Their goal keeping you there replaces your own.
That's a great analogy. It's like you're either treating the platform like a library, you go in, find the book you need, and you
yeah.
leave, or you're treating it like a shopping mall, just wandering around until something shiny catches your eye and empties your wallet. Or in this case, empties your time and your attention span.
And that lack of a clear goal, that passive default mode, is exactly what lets the dangers in. When you don't have a purpose, you allow the platform's machinery, which is designed for endless engagement, to become addiction. It replaces your productivity with just scrolling.
And this is where it gets really interesting because the source material goes from these, abstract rules, wisdom, goals to very specific real world outcomes. It grounds the whole argument by looking at young people.
That's right. The sources draw a direct comparison. They say that when people, especially young people, engage with social media with two specific qualities, discipline and purpose, it becomes a source of growth.
Discipline and purpose. That sounds like a structured activity. Let's make that more concrete.
Hmm.
If your purpose is, say, to learn graphic design.
Then you're using the app actively. You're searching for tutorials, you're joining groups to get critiques, you're downloading files.
Okay.
And the discipline part is maybe even more crucial. Discipline means you set a timer for 30 minutes for that specific task, and when that timer goes off, you close the app, period, even if you're mid-scroll.
So the discipline is what stops the algorithm from dragging you sideways into, I don't know, cat videos or political arguments.
Exactly. The platform becomes a surgical tool, a resource pool, not a black hole.
Mhm.
And the source argues that this purposeful discipline method is what creates actual growth. You're using the power of the network without falling into the psychological traps.
But then it pivots to the opposite case, right? It shows what happens when that control is missing.
It does. When that discipline and purpose are absent, it leads directly to specific documented harms. And the sources are very clear about what those are.
What are the main casualties they point to?
The sources name two big ones that affect everyone: direct harm to mental health and a major hit to productivity. When usage is passive, those two areas they suffer catastrophic losses.
Let's talk about the productivity loss for a second. I think most people get that scrolling is wasted time, but the sources seem to suggest it's a deeper kind of harm.
It is. The main mechanism they talk about is something called context switching, or attention residue.
Attention residue.
Yeah. Every time you get a notification, every time you do a quick check, your brain has to stop what it's doing, your important work, and load this new low-value information from the app.
And it takes time to get back on track.
It does. And the sources say that even a quick glance leaves an attention residue on your original task. It takes real mental energy to get back into that state of deep work. So uncontrolled use doesn't just damage the time you spend on the app, it damages the quality of the time you spend off it.
So it's a powerful equation then. Discipline plus purpose equals real growth. Lack of discipline and purpose equals harm to your mental health and your productivity.
That's it. It puts the responsibility squarely on the user. The argument is that you can't really blame the technology for lack of your own intentionality. The platform just reflects the level of discipline you bring to it.
So if we pull this all together, what does it really mean? The central argument seems to be that we have to stop asking if social media is good or bad. Instead, we have to see that its category, whether it's a tool or a distraction, is an active choice. A choice we make every single time we open the app. And it's dictated by our discipline and our goals, not by the algorithm.
Right. The material forces you to see that viewing your social media time as this passive thing you just consume is, well, it's fundamentally flawed and frankly dangerous. If you're struggling with the perils, that low self-esteem, the lost productivity, that feeling of addiction, the sources suggest the answer isn't just about demanding the platform change. It's about immediately installing your own behavioral controls.
The wisdom, the responsibility, and the clear goals, it's a powerful takeaway, and maybe an uncomfortable one for a lot of us. It shifts the focus from blaming outside forces to demanding internal accountability.
And that leads us to the final provocative thought we want to leave you with. It builds directly on everything we've talked about. So, since the sources demand that you use social media with a clear goal to avoid it becoming a distraction, this raises a really practical question for you, the listener. What metrics could you set up? right now, to make sure your own usage is purposeful. If your goal is professional networking, what's the verifiable action? Maybe sending 5 DMs or posting one industry insight, something you have to complete before you let yourself just scroll the feed.
So turning that abstract goal into a measurable task.
Exactly. If your goal is learning, what's the concrete piece of knowledge you have to walk away with from that session? That internal audit. That's the only mechanism the source material gives us for turning the peril of social media into genuine power.